33 Immortals is a co-op Hades roguelite style game, and the end boss is a World of Warcraft MMO raid boss with those same mechanics that you would see in something like an Ice-Crown Citadel or a Molten Core. It is also made by Thunderlotus Games, who made the incredibly difficult at times to play Spiritfarer. Difficult for good reasons, sad reasons, not because it was like a hard game to play. It was very good. Yeah, so that's 33 Immortals. It is a wacky and very different concept, and it is something that I wanted to talk a little bit about in a sort of off-the-cuff, not scripted, just chatting type of video right now. The background footage you are currently seeing is not needed, so if you would like to simply go ahead and listen to this in your car or as you're walking about, that is more than okay. The background stuff will help a little bit for some visuals, but it is nothing more past that. So a bit ago, I was invited to do a sponsor stream of 33 Immortals. This video you are currently listening to is not sponsored. Nothing that this video is going on about is sponsored at all, except for, well, this one part I'm about to do right now. We have launched a brand new massive Gamer Supps drop. 3 new items, a brand new custom label for the sweet 6-pack flavor, the first ever all over print jug, and a desk mat combined. And if you buy all 3 of them, I myself will head into the merch mines and hand write you a thank you postcard to go along with your order when it is shipped. This is all brought to you at 10% off if you use code Bricky and click the link in the description to take you there. It is on pre-order for 3 weeks. Grab it while it's hot. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal evolution of the Sweet 6-pack logo and look. More taste, yet same flavor. Check it out. Gamer Supps, code Bricky in the description. So yes, while this is sponsored by Gamer Supps, it is not sponsored by 33 Immortals. Yet I did do multiple streams of 33 Immortals as it launched into its early access period recently. I was brought on along with Matara Khan, Michimo Chibi, and Limalicious, and the 4 of us played this game for 3 separate streams of about 2 hours each. However, we very often asked if we could stream the game for longer than the 2-hour period because we were enjoying it so much. The baseline for the game is that overall it is you trying to what appears to be escape hell of some sort. I don't quite fully remember a lot of the story. It is shown to you in a small cutscene when you load up the game, and that's about it. More than anything, it appears that you are dead or some kind of underworld of sorts, and you are trying to get back to the surface. Which is just seems to be the case of the matter. You'll find that a lot of the mechanics of this game scream very similarly to Hades, where you have yourself a dash, you have yourself directional inputs for your attacks with whatever weapon you are currently using, and you gain upgrades as the round goes on. At the current moment, there are only 2 of the 3 areas available. However, the second area is not accessible unless you have keys. These keys given to you by beating the main boss in the first area. So the way it works currently is that you pick one of 4 weapons, either a bow, sword, staff, or daggers, and all of them have a kind of archetype to them all. The sword is tanky and slow, but it gives you a parry. The dagger has extremely high damage and mobility. The bow is a more range damage and sometimes a bit of an AoE, and also the staff is more of a support weapon, better described than anything else. These weapons also have their own upgrades and things that we'll probably get to as well. But then you generally pick whatever weapon you got, you put on a couple of perks that you have, which is only about a couple of slots, and then you load into the round with up to 4 players. However, in total, the entirety of the map has 33 players, hence the name 33 Immortals. From there, The main goal is to get yourself as powerful as you can possibly be before the main final boss, which goes into 3 stages. Basically, it starts off and you load in, and your first goal is to explore the world. There are going to be a lot of enemies, and they're very tanky to start off with, but as you run around, you'll find things like urns that you can smash to get bones and these little purple crystals, and then there are also chests that contain also things like that and various other stuff. And then there are orbs and other kinds of blessings and upgrades. Basically, bones are a currency that you utilize per round, and the crystals are like your permanent upgrades. You use those to upgrade your character between runs, kind of like the mirror in Hades, if you remember that. The bones are one of the main things because you utilize the bones to purchase new stuff. And eventually, after enough time and killing enough enemies, you'll probably get a bunch of purple. It's called dust. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. When it's filled up, you run to a little dusk altar of sorts, and then you can get one of the game's 3 main styles of upgrades. Basically, it's basically damage, health, or co-op power in a sense, and then you just upgrade it into the 3 different methods you feel like it, and then eventually God smites you from the heavens. And I'm not even really being that sarcastic on that one. One of the main stage adjustments is we just call it God. I mean, it probably is similar to that, some kind of divine reckoning. I think it's called the Shattering. But whenever we see it, we just start screaming, God, God's here, God's here. And then it's just some giant screen-wide shebangery. And after that point, these doors open, and they're called torture chambers. You can go to the entrance of a torture chamber, and you'll find a little skull shop, I suppose is the word. In this game, your health does not regenerate outside of certain items. So obviously, that's the roguelite aspect. You want to make sure you keep yourself alive throughout the entire round. But if you go to these little skull things, you can either spend the skulls that you've earned, which is the per round currency, on health, teleport stones, or keys. Once you enter those torture chambers, you end up actually fighting a ton of enemies, quite a few in fact, and then at the end of it there are 2 chests. One you get automatically, which gives you a relic. Those are kind of like your boons in a roguelite game, or I'm going to use Hades a lot because it's just the easy option, and then you're able to utilize those boons to give you different kinds of special upgrades. But you also have a second chest that you can use a key for, and that will allow you to get normally something a little bit fancier, including all the other stuff that you gain from chests. That is what levels up your character. Once a torture chamber is utilized, you can leave, and then you go kill some stuff, find some urns, find some chests, get some blessings. God arrives for the second time. You do more torture chambers, and then that kind of repeats for the 2 times. And then that generally is kind of how it runs. And then finally at the end, you have the 3rd time God arrives, and then there are 3, well, at least in the first level, there are 3 major altar areas. You run to those, you fight off a crapload of enemies, and then you can ascend. And when you ascend up into the sky, you then face that area's final major MMO WoW style raid boss. And so you're basically banking on all 33 other players to do a very good job getting their upgrades and doing what they need to do to be very strong for the final fight, and then you all do the final fight. And if you win, you get to a key to the new place. You generally get some major upgrades, some cosmetics, and a whole bunch of extra materials, and then you can run it again. That generally is the concept, and it seems very, I don't know, not generic, but it might seem a little bit like maybe uninteresting the way I describe it, but it's one of those games that creates a level of depth that you don't understand is as deep as it is until you actually really get into the title. So when I first started playing it, and all of us, in fact, the 4 of us that were streaming it, we were kind of like, damn, these enemies are really tanky, and it feels really bullet spongy. You're probably gonna get frustrated in the first couple, like the first hour or so you're playing, because of like how dang hard it is to kill some of these initial, like even just the trash mobs, especially if you use something like the sword, because the sword is just very slow and it's meant to just do some smaller, more tank style stuff. But then you start to realize how much the game is forcing you to fight as a team with a million different co-op mechanics. Like genuinely, the entire game is clearly made for you to do multiple kinds of co-op mechanics, and it works even if you don't have a party. So, for example, there is something called co-op strike. So let's say you got a big, son of a bitch skeleton dude or something, right? And you're wailing on him. On the top right-hand corner of the screen, it will say co-op strike. And every time you hit them, it'll increase your co-op strike. And that's if you're hitting it with somebody else. So if the two people or more, most likely more, are hitting the same thing over and over again, it is a percentage chance to get a crit, which is generally double damage. And so because of that, you can just go higher and higher and higher numbers that ends up getting to some pretty staggering stuff, up to 100% crit chance for that singular enemy, which allows you to gang up on certain bigger enemies and do a crap load of damage and really mitigate that bullet sponginess. Which is also cool because it doesn't have to be people in your party. That parties are the size of 4 right now, but because there's 33 players, it's just, like you can hit the big guy with anybody. It doesn't matter. Like so long as multiple people are hitting the big guy, it's totally fine. But then that immediately probably makes you think, oh, well, that sounds like the fastest attacking weapon might be the strongest. And that's the funny part is, yes, in a sense, but not necessarily, because that's where the co-op strikes come in. So each weapon has a special ability. It's called or not a co-op strike, but like a co-op power or something. I don't remember the exact name for it. But basically, it allows you to activate a special power that recharges in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. But each weapon's power is very unique. So you might think about the dagger, for example, right? Because you're like, okay, well, the dagger clearly is the highest damage, which allows you to just attack as fast as possible, which increases your co-op strike chance, which gets you a lot of damage. That is true, and I believe completely what they expect you to do. How the co-op strike for the dagger requires 2 people. That's the thing about these co-op or power, I guess. The co-op power requires another willing party to be there. You place a little thing on the ground, and then someone has to run up and press the button on it, and then you both get the power. And for the dagger, you get the ability to, every time you hit something, it drops a whole bunch of bones, and that's the currency for the run. And so not only do you and your partner, whoever hit it with you, get a bunch of currency, but you also gain damage based on your currency. So the dagger may have a really good base damage, but its actual co-op thing is a little bit more of like a finance, a little utility in a sense. And it also does damage, don't get me wrong, but then it also really helps you get your bones. Now, you might take something like the sword, for example, right? The sword's my favorite weapon because it's big and I like the big sword. But it doesn't really do a shitload of damage. It does some damage and it hits harder than the dagger does per swing, but it swings substantially slower. The thing about the sword, though, is that it has a parry. And when you press the parry, you take 0 damage and you attack back with a staggeringly large amount of damage. The thing is that you can grow really accustomed to using this parry. And so eventually you kind of just don't take damage anymore. And obviously no DPS, dead DPS is worse than low DPS. So especially in this kind of game, people who are a little bit too loosey-goosey with their fighting will find themselves taking a crap load of damage. And that makes you dead for the final boss, which also means your teammates will not have your help for the final boss. Normally, the final boss with 33 players ends up with like 23 or something like that because people just die along the way. So the sword makes it just super easy, just press parry, press parry, press parry. However, the co-op ability of the sword is actually a shield, and it's not even a temporary shield. It's a flat out damage shield that lasts until the shield breaks. Normally, it starts at like, I don't know, 20 something. And so every 3 people will just get that shield. This is huge shield. It really like keeps you alive. And that's a great power to have to keep you and your teammates solid. The bow, on the other hand, is a upward facing massive AoE amount of burst damage in a huge area, which is great for mob clearing and boss damage. And then the staff is a huge AoE slowdown, the snail, and it makes them incredibly weak and just the enemies just don't do anything. They just like trudge around doing nothing because they're so slow. So in reality, everything has its own use case and every ability is important in its own right. But then that kind of doubles up in a whole other way when you get to the various upgrades that you can get. So there are 3, right? Attack, health, and I think it's strike, fortitude and empathy or something like that. It's basically damage, health, and co-op. So originally I just took damage pure out, obviously, because damage is great, but getting HP is insanely helpful should you need it, because once again, low DPS is better than no DPS if you don't survive. And so sometimes the health is great, but empathy is one of those ones where I was like, like what, the co-op power is a little bit better? It's not a little bit better. It can be a lot better. I've gotten a shield with my sword that goes to like 46 damage blocked, because I stacked empathy, and your base HP is like 150, so it's basically a third extra HP they just slap on you and is there forever until it dies. I've seen arrows that just chunk the boss at a insane degree because they stacked empathy. It can get really wild how powerful you can make some of these co-op powers and how diverse they are. But then it gets into all the other crazy stuff, because of course you can spend your bones on health, obviously, but the health at the store front by the torture chambers is actually an AoE health. So you get 25% or whatever the number is, but everyone around you gets like 10. And so you can really stack that. If a bunch of people all do it at the same time, you can basically go from 0 to full, which is crazy handy. And those little torture chambers only have up to 6 slots. So everyone wants to be able to get there, pretty quickly, but you want to have a key, especially to open the other chest, which you can buy for more bones. Hey, what's a great way to get more bones? Using the daggers, right? Using the co-op power with somebody else for the currency. But, you want to make sure you don't die, so you get the sword and all the power there. And it just has such an extra level to it all. Such an extra addition in terms of the co-op ability there. And it goes even farther from that, right? Sometimes there will be times where like, oh, I need some more help with this or that. Or, example, the altars, at least in the first map, are the 3. And they're the final things before you ascend to the final boss. Now, the funny thing is, each altar that is completed gives you a permanent buff for the final boss. Originally, we all stacked one altar because, strength in numbers, we want to make sure we all survive because it's a lot of enemies. But then once that we realized that, we started buying teleport stones, because the teleport stone lets you teleport not just to your teammates, but to anyone on the map. So me and my teammates, we would all go to one altar, we would kill everything in there as quick as we can, and then we would teleport to other altars to help those players out to make sure that they survived, and we all got a bunch of buffs. And then we would buy teleport stones to teleport to torture chambers to get better relics and more powerful items to fight the boss quicker. And then there's a little bit of that internal economy there, right? Then, you get all of the purple stones and stuff. And then it allows you to go back into the main, the dark woods is what it's called. It's like your hub in a way. And then you can go there to be able to, get more cosmetics, purchase more different kinds of upgrades, upgrade your perks, because these are the permanent upgrades, right? Your perks give you more empathy, more damage, more health, whatever things you require. You can upgrade your various weapons with different kinds of, not just regular upgrades, but also different kinds of weapon modifiers in a sense. Like I got one that makes my sword swing faster the higher the bar is filled up, the little blue bar. Like there's also that. It's kind of crazy how much depth you really start to get into. And then you load back into the game with all these other upgrades, and those tanky enemies are not as tanky as they were before. But it's not just because you are stronger, it's because you have the know-how to team strike things. All right, everyone go south, look for urns, look for chests, got it. Okay, torture chambers, where are we going? Bottom left, everyone head down there. Someone else get the key there originally. Wait, don't heal yet, let's all get to the thing first so we can all heal and get more percentage health. All right, everyone, we're done with left altar. What altars are left? Right altar, teleport to right altar. And it's this great mixture of lots of great team communication and excitement while simultaneously not being like too stressful. You think about like a lot of WoW raids and stuff and how much people prepare for that kind of thing. And I love my Destiny 2 raids, and I know Destiny is kind of a bit of a touchy subject right now, but I think every Destiny player can at least agree that the raids were the best part. And god damn were they fun, but they were anxiety. Dragon stripper pole, please. No. You shot the wrong eye on Riven, L1 R3, L1 R3. No, you shot R2. Oh, wait, we wiped. I'm having like flashbacks. But, you know, it has this kind of like, oh, it's kind of relaxed, but at the same time, it's still, you're really going hard into all of the co-op stuff. And we haven't even gotten to the main boss yet, right? Because the main boss has those mechanics. You're always attacking, like let's say it's Lucifer, right? That's the first main boss. And you're attacking the heart, and all of those red bits beneath his HP bar are more HP bars as he goes down. And so you're attacking, and eventually he'll activate one of his abilities. One of them is called Frozen Hate, for example, and he gets High Lord of Wolnir, Dark Souls 3 manacles, and you need to break those manacles. But of course, you know, people might still be dumb and try to attack the heart without realizing that he has like an 80% damage resistance because we're in manacle mode. And you need to destroy those manacles. And if you don't destroy those manacles, he has an AoE giant damage slam across the entire environment. Now, that AoE damage slam may not kill you, but it will hurt really bad. And it's AoE. God knows how much health your teammates might have. Move that over. Then you also have, say, Tears of Sorrow? I forget what. There's three of them. There's Teardroplets, there's Last Betrayal, and then there's Frozen Hate. And so there might be another one that I can't remember. But basically, one of them is, here's these three gigantic icy mobs. You need to kill them all, or else you get screen-wide damage. Here are a bunch of tears. You need to kill all the tears or else you get screen-wide damage. And if you do destroy them all, then it's almost screen-wide damage, but with a little bit of a safety net there to keep yourself alive. And so it's this really fun combination where everyone is like murder, kill, murder, go, 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 etc., etc. And then they all end up working together to be able to use these mechanics that, sure, in the beginning, people won't quite understand as well, and then they don't really realize all of the specifics, but then you start to get a little hang of it. People start using their emotes as like the little left arrow to say like, hey, left manacle first, because you all want to gang up on one thing because you want that co-op strike. And then you see people putting down the arrow volleys and you run to go help them out because it's a huge amount of damage, and then you get shields. And don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of selfishness in there. I have definitely teleported to a torture chamber and gotten what I imagine was a slot when I shouldn't have, but I mean, that just kind of goes along with the exploring of the map, getting your upgrades, and so on and so forth. Not to mention that as soon as you start really doing well with the first boss, you'll eventually be going to the second area, which actually has 22 players. The third area has 11, but it's not currently available in the early access period. And that, I mean, I've also I've also fought and beaten the second area's main boss, and it is a great fight. It is super fun. It is substantially more difficult too. The moment you're like, damn, I've beaten the main boss Lucifer at the first area a couple of times, let me try the second area, and you will get walloped in that area. And so as you make your way through and you level up and you get all your things going, get your feats done, which has you try all the different weapons and the upgrades, and then the higher your feat level becomes, the more perks you unlock, which allows you to also upgrade your weapons and give them new types of styles. There's just the level of possibility there is genuinely very high, and it's a lot of gushing praise. It is rare that I want to play a game. I mean, don't get me wrong, certain games are sponsors, and sponsors are sponsors. Normally, 90% of the time, I take like a game sponsor. The game is decent to fine. I very, very rarely ever take like terrible game sponsors, unless like, I don't know, I didn't know much about the game beforehand. Like, oh, we're launching this brand new title and we're paying people to play it. Like, at that point, you kind of just have to roll the dice a little bit. But in this situation, I didn't even realize it was Thunderlotus Games who made Spiritfarer before. And Spiritfarer is incredible. Not perfect, but like a good 9 or like an 8.5. And from there, just also such a different departure, you know? Spiritfarer is a management game, and this one is a co-op roguelite type thing. I do have a few problems with 33 Immortals. However, I do wonder how many of these problems are going to be ironed out with more early access period. I'm trying to remember. I got a buddy who told me a little bit about how to give feedback to when it comes to like game development stuff. And normally it's like, okay, what do you perceive as wrong? How does it make you feel? and then something else. But the third thing was not like give advice because gamers don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to advice. It was something different. I don't remember exactly how it went, but long story short, basically a couple of things. One, definitely there needs to be a little bit of an animation adjustment for enemy attacks. Certain enemies have this big old orange area, which is super easy and obviously telegraphed, but then certain enemies kind of glow a white color before they strike you, and there's no orange area. I think orange areas are totally great for a lot of big AoE strikes, and it's very helpful for that. But I will say I find myself taking the most amount of damage either from random particles across the screen or an enemy like the flying skull batwing dudes that just kind of run up to you, hit you with the glowing white, and then strike you. And you kind of get accustomed to seeing the big orange, and when there isn't the big orange, you just don't think there's an attack coming. And so very often I've actually ended up using the sword a lot because whenever I think anyone's going to strike me, I just slam the parry button, and normally I'm right. So there's a little bit of an attack telegraph thing. I think more than anything, there needs to be some kind of other style of way to telegraph certain attacks. I don't think it should all be orange, but I think a little bit of visual clarity is definitely needed, especially because this game, I wouldn't say operates like a lower frame rate, but the animations of the enemies feel a bit more, they have like the hand-drawn Spiritfarer style. I don't know exactly how to describe that type of art direction. It's very, very good and pretty and lovely, but it's really good for Spiritfarer, which is a management game, whereas this one requires sometimes some twitch reflexes, and because of that, it can get a little lost in the sauce. So I think either slower attacks or more obvious kind of telegraphs would be a lot better. I would also say that I would like a little bit of maybe not an easier way, but the thing is that when you do MMO boss fights, right, you are preparing yourself with a build in like a WoW type of game, and in those you are really caring about stats. You care about percentages, you care about the damage stats, you want numbers. The thing about 33 Immortals that is a little bit like annoying is that a lot of the benefits you cannot tell what they are, and if you can, you don't necessarily know the exact numbers. For example, like the sword is the damage you do, and when you go to those like purple orb things, it gives you +3 sword. And when it comes like what does +3 sword mean to your damage, you don't really know. It's just +3 attack or whatever it is. And so you could tell from maybe like the dummy in the Darkwoods area, like, okay, this is how much damage I do now. Let me go change my perk with +5 attack. Okay, now it's doing this much damage. What percentage? No, like you don't know the actual data. They may be keeping it purposely vague, but in this type of game, considering the fact that your entire point is to become as powerful as you possibly can be, to then attack a big MMO boss, having data is important. You don't have to be mega amounts of data, but I wouldn't mind some kind of, you can press tab in game or something, and then like, oh, I'm using the sword, I do 110 damage a strike, and then you go get your 3 extra attack of the orb, and then you press tab again, and you look, and then you see your sword does 140 damage a strike, and you're like, okay, cool, now I know how much of an upgrade it is. If you don't want to give the exact percentages, at least show me the difference in my actual stats in a more easily identifiable way. That's something I think that's just a quality of life thing. People are going to min-max this because that's the point of doing, I mean, every roguelite is in a sense a mid-max, just you're trying to min-max sometimes the most fun builds. And you also, it's hard, it's meant to be hard, so you want to get to the end. And especially as you start getting to the harder and harder areas, you will end up struggling a lot, and you're going to want to start min-maxing. And that's just the way these kinds of games works. I myself am not a min-maxer in video games in general, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't like a little bit more data to kind of see the changes that occur. That would be very, very handy. I would say that a little bit of enemy variety is also needed. The main first area only has maybe 5 or 6 styles of enemies. You got like the slugs, you've got the person with the big rock on their back, you've got the headless dude, you've got the bone archers, and then the shield guys, you got like the mosquitoes and the bat wings. So it's not too bad, maybe a little bit under 10. I would say that more than anything, I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I think they only need like one more enemy, because normally they come in various varieties. You've got skeleton archer, and then you had skeleton dude with sword and board, and then you had big skeleton boss guy. I would prefer like one more version of those, because normally they go with type, version of type, and then boss version. And I could use one more. I actually like the enemy variety of the second area a lot more because they actually play with a bit more strategy. In the first one, everything is basically just a giant beat stick that either hits you or creates AoE. In the second level, there is a substantially larger amount of support. There are invulnerability shields, healing. It forces you to do target priority a little bit more, and I really like that. I just think the second area has way better enemy design overall, and so maybe a little bit of an addition on the first one would be more enjoyable. I also think that the final boss, at least the Lucifer one, could use one more type of attack. Right now, I think of the Frozen Tears, I think of the Last Betrayal, the 3 guys, and then I think of the Manacles. I wouldn't mind like just one other mechanic, something that maybe doesn't take as long, or at least can be cycled a bit more. Maybe a mechanic that happens when you break them down to half HP or something. I'm not quite sure. Something that maybe plays with timing a bit more could be kind of fun. But for the most part, I'm a little bit tired of like seeing there's like sometimes I will go just, yeah, that's Manacles again. All right, left side. And you kind of like get a little bit exasperated by it. A little bit more diversity on that I think would be super handy. Besides that, I mean, there's the ones I don't want to complain about are things like, oh, I would like 2 more weapons. That's an obvious one. It's early access. There's only 4 weapons in there. I would definitely think 6 or something would be a little bit better. But besides that, I don't know. Mostly, I look in the game and I think about all I played so far, and this is basically the launch patch of the title. And I have played, obviously, there's the various levels of streaming I did for the sponsors, but I wonder, can I actually look at... Yeah, I've already played 11 hours and 3 minutes of this game, and it's only been like a week and change. And I must say, I've only really mainly played it with a group, which tends to be mainly just the streams. And so for the most part, considering on average, we only were supposed to do 2 hours, I think we've played, like we were supposed to only do 2, and we played between like 3 to 4 hours every time. And it's, I gotta be honest, I can really see it being a big thing. More than anything, I think the biggest struggle they're going to have is the big one, which is the game is currently available on 2 places, which is the Xbox Game Pass, or Xbox in general, I suppose, as well as the Epic Games Store. It is not currently on Steam, which I know for a lot of people is an immediate immediate click off. That's the end of it. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't much care about the launcher it's on. I can totally see the benefits and the negatives that go along with it, but little inside scoop for some of you, I suppose. Getting funding for video games lately has become very difficult. People are starting to become wise to the fact that these giant overbloated budgets just don't make the money back. And so a lot of people, investors, are like, oh, why the hell would I give you $50 million for a video game when it can just sink? So I think Epic Games or something is like bankrolling this or something, and if that's the case, like, I get it, you know, like, hey, you gotta, I mean, Hades started off on the EGS and then eventually came to Steam when it was done, and I don't mind that. I don't know, I'm not a stickler for that kind of stuff. Some people are. It's not, I don't really care enough. For me, it's just whatever. I care more about the game. And for the most part, I really do like the game. I think there's a lot that can be in there. I would love to see them. They mentioned something about private lobbies. I don't think I necessarily need a private lobby, but I would love the ability to give yourself as big of a lobby as you want. So right now, the highest possible people is 4 players, and there's 33 in the big group. I would adore just to let you get as big of a party as you want it to be. You know, I so see this as the old school Halo 3 games where you load up a custom game lobby and it's like big team battle with a whole bunch of crap on the field and it's 8v8, and you just like randomly invite as many people as you want to fill up 16 players in there and just go to town. And I can totally see this just being that, where everyone has this game and you're like, who wants to play 33 more? And there's like 11 people in a Discord call and you just bring them all in. And that's just super fun. Like, I can totally see the use in that. So it's a bit of a rarity to see that nowadays. I would love to see a bit more games do things like that. So I think there's a great market there that can be snagged. But at the moment, yeah, I mean, the 33 Immortals, I think right now it's available on Game Pass. It's also available on the EGS. I think it's like $20. Yeah, it's $20 for the early access game. I really enjoy it. I think there is going to be a very strong game here. It's currently got a 4.7 out of 5 for the the ratings or whatever. I just, yeah, I mean, Thunderlotus Games have made some great titles in the past. I could totally see this thing being a real hit. It may not be like a top of the Twitch charts hit, but I can absolutely see it being a hit with enough time and with the right updates. So yeah, that's just my general thoughts on 33 Immortals. I think it is a great time. I really do. I would highly recommend picking it up. I mean, even if you don't have the friends, the solo ability is good. I would like it with more people. It is not as good with friends. I would highly recommend getting 2 to 4 people with it. I mean, honestly, 2 is enough. You know, like 1 is fine, but the difference between 2 and 1 is substantially better than 2 and 4, if that makes any sense. Like, just having 1 friend is enough. So yeah, definitely highly recommend it. Super fun. And yeah, well, maybe I'll talk more about it when the game has its full launch. To the Thunderlotus Games folks, thank you so very much for the sponsored streams that you helped us out with. Me and myself, Matara. I mean, in a sense, this is all Matara. She invited me to be a part of this co-sponsor, and I got to be paid for being part of the co-sponsor. So in reality, I guess I owe her some money, which is the worst fate. But you know, absolutely great stuff. Please hire us back when you have major updates to the game, because we will 100% get back into it. So yes, thank you. And yeah, anyway, hope you all enjoyed this little video, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.